She never meant to send it. She typed the message while sitting on the edge of her bed, phone glowing in the dark, heart heavy with thoughts she had never dared to say aloud. It was supposed to go to someone insignificant, a forgotten contact, a name she barely remembered. The message was private, unguarded, a confession wrapped in frustration and curiosity. But one slip of the thumb changed everything. The message did not vanish, it traveled. It crossed barriers no human knew existed. And it landed directly in the private communication channel of the Vampire King. The moment it arrived, the ancient systems beneath the palace walls reacted. Sigils flared unseen. Servants felt a sudden chill. Nobles paused mid-conversation as if the air itself had inhaled. The king's private chamber, untouched by outsiders for centuries, lit up with a single notification. The Vampire King looked down at the device in his hand, expecting silence as always. He had not received an unsanctioned message in over 300 years. His expression did not harden. He did not crush the device. He read. And as his eyes moved across the words, his lips curved into something far more dangerous than anger. Because the message did not beg, it did not flatter, it did not fear. It spoke of things no human should know. It mentioned rituals erased from records. It questioned a blood oath sworn before empires fell. It named a place that officially never existed. And worst of all, it asked a question no one had dared ask him since the night he became king. For the first time in centuries, the Vampire King felt curiosity awaken inside his chest. Far from the palace, the woman stared at her screen confused. She expected no reply. She didn't even expect delivery. The message showed as read. Her stomach tightened. She tried to convince herself it meant nothing. But then her phone vibrated once, slow, deliberate. A reply. I have been waiting for someone to ask me that. Her breath caught. She reread the words again and again. Who was this? How did he know what she meant? Her fingers hovered over the screen before she could stop herself. She typed back asking who he was. The response came instantly. You sent this to the wrong man, and the only one who could answer. In the palace, panic spread quietly. The king had summoned his inner council without raising his voice. That alone was enough to unnerve them. They gathered behind sealed doors, faces tight, voices low. They knew something was wrong. They could feel it in the blood wards humming through the stone. She is human, one noble said, reading the intercepted trace of the message with disbelief. There is no record of her lineage. Then how does she know? Another whispered about the veiled crown. Silence fell. The Vampire King stood at the head of the chamber, calm as a still sea before a storm. That, he said softly, is why she interests me. A forbidden fear crept through the room. The veiled crown was not a symbol. It was a secret. It was the truth behind his rule. A truth erased from history, buried with blood and time. If a human had uncovered even a fragment, it meant something ancient had shifted. Back in her small apartment, the woman's phone vibrated again. This time, the message was longer. You asked why the crown bleeds only at dawn. That is not an accident. It is a reminder. Her hands began to shake. She never sent that question. She had written it months ago in a private journal. No one had ever read it. Her chest tightened with a sudden understanding. She had not reached a stranger. She had reached the source. Who are you? She typed again, heart pounding. The reply came after a pause, as if the sender was considering how much truth to allow. I am the mistake history tried to erase. In the palace, the oldest noble stepped back in horror. King, this cannot continue, if the high houses sense this. They already will, the king interrupted calmly. That is the point. Because behind his composed exterior, the Vampire King felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in centuries. Hope, not for power, not for conquest, but for release. The message had not exposed her error, it had exposed his prison. And far away, the woman stared at her screen, unaware that every word she typed was pulling her closer to a truth that could burn kingdoms down. The wrong message had reached the right monster, and he was no longer hiding. The palace bells rang once, low and ominous. a signal that had not been used in generations. The nobles realized with dawning terror that something forbidden had resurfaced. And this time it had a human name. She should have blocked the number. She should have deleted the chat and told herself it was a prank. But the calm in his messages felt too exact, too certain, like someone reading her from the inside. She tried to breathe, then checked the contact she had me sent to. The name was still just a single letter. She couldn't remember why she saved it like that. She only remembered the night she saved it 6 months ago, after a museum fundraiser where a stranger in a dark coat had spoken to her once and made her feel like the room had tilted toward him. Her phone buzzed again. Not call anyone. Do not leave your building. Do not stand near windows. She stared at the warning, then at her thin curtains fluttering from a draft. She lived on the 4th floor. The street outside was normal cars, people, noise, and yet the room felt sealed as if the air had learned fear. She typed, "Why?" The reply arrived with the same slow patience. Because the moment you named the veiled crown, you stepped onto a map that only monsters can read. Across the city, in the highest room of a black glass tower, the vampire king watched a live feed he should not have had. He saw her face through a hallway camera in her building, not because he was stalking her like a human creep, but because he owned the data lines under the streets and the companies that sold security. He saw her stand still, phone in hand, eyes wide. He could hear her heartbeat through the building's old pipes, steady but speeding up. He made no move to rush her, no grand entrance, no dramatic storm. He only turned to the nobles gathered behind him and said, "She exists." The nobles argued anyway. They always did when they were scared. "King, if she is bait, if Corvus planted her, Corvus would not dare use a human for this," the king said. Unless he believed the human would survive. That shut them up for a second. The name Corvus carried weight, like a knife pressed into memory. House Corvus was the oldest rival line, polished in public, cruel in private, and obsessed with one idea: the veiled crown must return to the high houses, even if it meant ripping it from the king's skin. The king turned a ring on his finger, black stone swallowing the light. "She wrote a question only one bloodline can form," he said. "Either she stole it or she inherited it." The oldest noble swallowed hard. "There is a third option." The room chilled. "If the king ordered," the noble's voice dropped to a whisper, "you hit a blood oath in human skin centuries ago, that oath could awaken." Followed, thick as smoke. The king's eyes did not widen. He had already thought it. He had just refused to say it out loud. Back in her flat, she tried to be rational. She opened her notes app, found the lines she had written months ago after a strange dream. Veiled crown, vaulted sent brides, key of bone, son can't claim him. She never understood why she wrote it. It felt like words dictated by something older than her. She had even joked about it to her friend once, then deleted the text because it sounded insane. Now a stranger was answering the dream as if it was a letter addressed to him. A new message arrived, but it was not from him. It was from an unknown number. "We saw what you sent. We can pay for the rest. Send the next thing to us." Her stomach flipped. She typed back, "Who are you?" The answer came instantly: "People who can keep you human." Before she could react, another text landed from A. "Do not reply to them. They are not human either." Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She looked at the unknown number again. 3 dots appeared, typing, typing, typing. Then the message arrived. "Open your door." She froze. Her skin went cold. She did not move. She listened. The building hallway was quiet until a faint sound reached her through the door, a soft scrape like a nail drawn along wood, not a knock, not a voice. A deliberate signal meant for predators. She stepped back, heart hammering, eyes fixed on the lock. Then her phone buzzed and the screen lit with A's words. "Stay behind the kitchen wall. Count to 10. Do not scream." She didn't understand, but fear made her obey. She backed into the tiny kitchen, pressed herself into the corner between the fridge and the plaster wall, phone clutched to her chest. She counted. 1, 2, 3, on 7. The hallway outside exploded with sound. Not a bomb, not a gunshot, but a deep impact that made the whole floor jump. She heard a wet gasp, then a choke, then silence that felt wrong. Too complete. She hit 10 with tears in her eyes, then a texted, "Now open the door." She wanted to refuse. She didn't. She walked on numb legs, unlatched the lock, and pulled the door open. 2 men stood in the hallway. One was in a gray suit, face blank, eyes hidden behind dark glasses even though it was night. The other was on his knees, clutching his throat, skin turning a bruised purple, as if invisible hands were squeezing him from the inside. The suited man spoke without looking at her. "Miss Harper, you will come with us." She blinked. "Not Harper." Man tilted his head as if listening to a voice only he could hear. Then he corrected himself smoothly. "My apologies, Miss Nadia Brooks, you will come with us." He knew her full name. She backed up. No. Her foot hit a fallen object in the hallway. She looked down. It was a small silver charm shaped like a raven, still warm as if it had been held seconds ago. The kneeling man's eyes rolled white. He rasped, "Give her to Corvus." And then he collapsed dead without a visible wound. Nadia's throat closed. She stared at the corpse, then at the suited man. "Who are you?" she whispered. The suited man finally removed his glasses. His eyes were not normal. They were a pale red with a thin black ring-like ink around the iris. "I am Victor," he said. "The one you texted is not a man you ignore." From the stairwell behind Victor, a presence rose like night fog taking shape. Nadia felt it before she saw it. The temperature dropped. The air thickened. The building lights flickered and steadied as if afraid to fully fail. Then he stepped into the hallway. He was exactly what her memory tried to deny. The man from the fundraiser, midnight hair, stillness like a blade held against skin. A face too perfect to feel safe. He looked at Nadia as if he had been waiting for her across centuries, not weeks. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You should not stand in doorways," he said. "It makes you easy to take." She tried to speak. No sound came. He glanced at the dead man on the floor, then back at her. "Corvus is moving early," he murmured, as if annoyed by bad timing. Nadia finally found her voice. "Are you a?" He nodded once. "Name is Alistair Graves," he said. "Yes, I am the king they warned you about." Victor stepped aside, head bowed. Although Alistair's face stayed calm, Nadia saw something flicker in his eyes when he looked at her phone screen, still open on her message. The flicker was not hunger, it was recognition. And that was worse. "You wrote about the veiled crown," Alistair said. "Tell me where you learned it." "I don't know," Nadia whispered. "It came to me." Alistair's gaze sharpened. Like a memory she swallowed, like a wound. The word hung between them. Then Alistair took one step closer and the hall seemed to shrink around him. "Then it has begun," he said softly. "The thing I buried is waking up." Nadia's knees weakened. "What did you bury?" His reply was a whisper that felt like a door opening in her skull. "A piece of me." Alistair did not wait for her permission. He lifted her phone from her hand with 2 fingers as if it was evidence, then returned it to her gently. "Pack nothing," he said. "If you stop to gather objects, you die for objects." Nadia's mouth went dry. "Not going anywhere with strangers." Victor's expression did not change. "They are not strangers to you," he said. "You simply forgot." That sentence hit harder than the corpse in the hall. "What?" Nadia asked, but Alistair was already moving. He walked toward the stairs, not the lift. "Elevators are cages," he said over his shoulder. "Corvus loves cages." Nadia followed because her body chose survival over pride. She kept one hand on the wall to steady herself, eyes fixed on Alistair's back. He moved with no sound, no breath, no urgency, and yet every step felt like a command the building obeyed. On the second-floor landing, Victor paused and glanced at the stairwell window. "They are watching," he murmured. Nadia looked and saw nothing. Then the glass fogged from the inside, as if warm breath touched it from the street far below. A shape appeared in the fog, not a face but a symbol, a raven made of condensation. Then the fog vanished, leaving clear glass and Nadia's own terrified reflection. They reached the back exit. Although the street was empty, Alistair did not step into the open. He stood under the awning and looked at the darkness like it was a room he owned. 3 units, Victor said quietly. 2 across the road, 1 on the roof. Nadia's pulse spiked. "Guns." Alistair's mouth curved, not a smile, more like contempt. "UV," he said. "Humans think light is holy, they forget it can be a weapon." He touched Nadia's wrist just above her pulse. His fingers were cold, but the contact steadied her like a weight anchoring a balloon. "When I say move, you move," he said. She nodded because she had no better plan. Alistair's eyes lifted to the roofline. He spoke one word in a language Nadia did not know. It sounded like stone cracking under ice. The street lamps along the block burst at once. Glass rained down. Sparks hissed on wet pavement. Darkness swallowed the road. And in that darkness, Nadia felt something watching from everywhere at once, as if the shadows themselves had opened eyes. "Now," Alistair said. He moved. It was not running. It was a sudden relocation, as if the world skipped frames. Nadia's stomach lurched and she clutched his coat by instinct. The next moment they were behind a parked van 3 buildings down, she gasped, almost vomiting. Victor appeared beside them without a footstep, as if he had always been there. A thin blue beam sliced through the air where they had stood seconds ago. The van's metal hissed as the beam grazed it, leaving a glowing scar. "They missed," Nadia whispered. "They did not miss," Alistair replied. "They warned." Beam cut low, aimed at Nadia's legs. Although she had not seen the shooter, Alistair's hand snapped out and the beam bent, as if it hit an invisible mirror. It ricocheted upward and burned a black line into the brick wall across the street. Wards, Nadia breathed. She did not know what a ward was, but the word felt right. Although Alistair looked human, his gaze said he was built from rules older than electricity. Not wards, he corrected. Inheritance. Looked at her again, harder this time. "Do you understand now why your message matters?" "I sent it by mistake," Nadia said. "I don't even know what it means." Alistair's voice lowered. "That is the lie Corvus is counting on," he said. "He thinks you are empty enough to be used." Leaned in, eyes like a storm held in glass. "You are not empty, you are a lock." Victor opened the rear door of the van. The inside was not laundry. It was a clean compartment lined with steel and soft straps like a medical transport. "Get in," Victor said. Nadia flinched. "That looks like a kidnapping van." Victor's mouth did something almost human. It might have been regret. "Many rescues do," he said. Nadia climbed in, back pressed to the cool wall. Alistair followed. Then Victor shut the door. The van moved immediately, smooth as a ghost on wheels. Nadia listened for sirens. She heard none. "They own the police," Victor said from the front without turning. "Corvus bought their silence long ago." The city blurred past through a small slit window. Nadia's thoughts blurred too. She stared at Alistair's hands, unmoving on his knees like a statue pretending to sit. "You're a king," she said. "Why hide?" Alistair's eyes shifted to her. "Because crowns invite knives," he said. "Because mine is not meant to exist." Nadia laughed once, sharp and weak. "That's dramatic." Did not laugh back. "It's illegal," he said. "Our law, there are bloodlines that may rule and bloodlines that must die. My bloodline is a mistake the council tried to erase." His jaw tightened. "I survived by burying half my truth." The van turned onto a private road bordered by trees. The air changed, cleaner, heavier. Nadia realized they were leaving the normal part of the city, heading toward hills and old estates where money and secrets lived together. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To the place your message unlocked," Alistair said. "To the vault you wrote about." They arrived at a churchyard that should not have existed inside Seattle's sprawl St. Bride's, a small stone church wedged between towering modern buildings like a memory that refused to die. The gate opened on its own without a creak. The van rolled in and stopped beneath a yew tree whose branches hung like black lace. Alistair stepped out and Nadia followed, shivering though she wore a coat. She smelled damp soil, cold stone, and something faintly sweet like lilies left too long in water. Victor stayed by the van, scanning the shadows. "No cameras," he said. "They were all cut an hour ago." Nadia's fear spiked again. "How?" Alistair's eyes stayed on the church door. "Because I asked," he said simply. Inside, the church was dark, lit only by a few candles that burned without smoke. The air was colder than outside. Nadia's footsteps echoed too loudly, as if the building wanted to announce her presence. Alistair walked to the altar and placed his palm on the stone slab. The candle flames leaned toward him, as if drawn to his gravity. A seam appeared in the floor behind the altar, stone shifting without sound. A staircase spiraled down into blackness. Nadia's throat tightened. "This is the vault," Alistair nodded. "It is where I put the crown," he said. "Where I put the reason I can never take it back." They descended. The walls were lined with carved names, some in Latin, some in scripts Nadia couldn't read, but she felt their meaning anyway: dead allies, broken oaths, forbidden births. At the bottom was a round chamber with a single pedestal in the center. On it rested a band of metal that looked like obsidian and moonlight at once. It did not shine. It drank the light. Nadia stared, unable to look away. "That's the veiled crown," she whispered, though she did not know how she knew. Alistair watched her with a hunger that was not desire but fear. "Say what you feel," he ordered gently. "Tell me what it does to you." Nadia stepped closer on shaking legs. The closer she got, the louder her blood sounded in her ears, not just the beat but the movement, like it was speaking in rhythm. "It feels like it knows me," she said. "Like it's calling." The crown pulsed once, subtle as a heartbeat. The candles in the chamber flared violet. Nadia's vision blurred for a second and images slammed into her mind. An old palace under a red moon. A man with Alistair's eyes kneeling before a woman in a veil of silver, blood dripping onto a crown, and a scream that felt like her own throat tearing. Nadia staggered back, hand to her head. "What was that?" she gasped. Alistair caught her elbow without touching her skin, as if afraid contact would break something. "Memory," he said, "but not yours alone." His voice went tight. "It's mine. And it should not be inside you." Looked up, shaking. "Inside me?" Alistair's eyes went darker. "100 years ago," he said, "I loved a human woman enough to try the one thing the council forbade, to bind my crown to her blood so no house could steal it without her consent. Swallowed, rarely human. They murdered her for it. They tore the crown from her body while she lived." Nadia's stomach rolled. She pressed her palm to the stone wall to keep from falling. "That's sick." Alistair's voice became a razor. "I killed everyone in that chamber," he said, "but the council survived, because councils always survive. They rewrote the law, they erased her name, they made the crown lost. I buried it here and swore never to love a human again." Nadia forced herself to meet his gaze. "Then why am I seeing it?" Alistair's answer was quiet and devastating. "Because your blood just answered a question my blood has been asking for centuries." He lifted his hand toward her throat, stopping short. "Your pulse matches the rhythm of the crown." Victor's voice echoed down the stairwell. "My king, we have movement." Alistair's head turned slightly, as if listening to frequencies Nadia couldn't hear. "Corvus found the church," Victor said. "He's bringing witnesses." Alistair's expression did not change, but the air sharpened like a room filling with knives. "How?" Nadia demanded, looking between them. Victor did not answer. Alistair answered for him. "Because someone carried your scent here," he said. "You trusted." Nadia's eyes snapped to Victor. "You?" Victor's face was a mask, but his eyes flickered one brief flash of shame. "I did what I had to," he said. "If Corvus takes you, he will stop hunting us through the city." He offered mercy. Alistair's calm finally cracked. It was not shouting, it was worse, a low voice full of death. "Mercy from Corvus is a slower execution," he said. He stepped toward Victor with terrifying smoothness. Victor did not run. He only lowered his head. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought if you lost her, you would return to cold order. No more risk, no more war." Them footsteps raced down the stairs, and Nadia realized the wrong message had just started a blood war, tonight. Nadia barely had time to process Victor's betrayal before the first footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. They were not hurried. They were confident, measured, like people who believed the ending was already written. The candle flames along the chamber walls leaned away from the stairwell, as if repelled by whatever was coming down. Alistair placed himself half a step in front of Nadia, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the cold gravity of him anchoring the space. "Not speak unless I tell you," he said quietly. "Whatever you feel from the crown, do not answer it yet." Her mouth was dry. She nodded. Corvus entered the chamber with the ease of someone walking into his own home. He was taller than Alistair, his presence polished rather than heavy, wearing a pale coat that reflected candlelight instead of absorbing it. His smile was warm, the kind people trusted, and that made Nadia's skin crawl. Behind him came 3 nobles and 2 armed enforcers, faces calm, eyes sharp. Corvus spread his hands in greeting. "Alistair," he said softly, still hiding underground like a myth ashamed of daylight. Alistair did not move. "You brought witnesses," he replied. "That means you plan to lie publicly." Chuckled. "I brought protection," he said. "From you." His gaze shifted to Nadia, and the warmth vanished, turning clinical. "This is her." Felt like a specimen under glass. Corvus stepped closer to the pedestal, careful not to cross an invisible boundary the crown seemed to command. "You always had terrible taste in women," he said lightly. "Human attachments weaken strategy." Alistair's jaw tightened. "Say why you are here," sighed theatrically. "Very well." The council sensed a pulse, an awakening. "They sent me to verify." His eyes flicked to the crown, then back to Nadia. "You hid it well, but you were careless with her." Nadia found her voice despite the fear. "I didn't ask for this," she said. Corvus smiled at her like a teacher indulging a child. "Of course you didn't," he said. "You never do." Alistair's hand lifted slightly, a warning. Nadia fell silent. Corvus circled slowly, studying her from every angle. "Fascinating," he murmured. "No marks, no ritual scars, and yet the crown responds." He stopped in front of her too close. You know what you are? Nadia swallowed. A mistake, she said. Corvus laughed, sharp and pleased. Exactly, he said. Mistakes must be corrected. The air thickened. The crown pulsed again, this time stronger. Nadia felt heat bloom under her skin, not pain, but pressure, like something stretching awake. Alistair's voice cut low and dangerous. Not provoke it. Raised a brow. You're afraid, he said. Not of me, of her. Leaned closer to Nadia and spoke softly, almost kindly. Did he tell you how the last human he bound to the crown died? Nadia's breath hitched. Alistair moved instantly, but Corvus's enforcer stepped between them, blade flashing silver. Said, witnesses. He turned back to Nadia. She screamed, he continued. Because she was dying, but because she understood. She understood that loving him made her a target, and that he would never stop choosing his crown over her life. The words sank like poison. Nadia looked at Alistair, searching his face for denial. She found none, only regret. He won't tell, went on, that binding yourself to him means you stop being human law, you become property of the throne. Crown flared. Nadia gasped as a rush of images flooded her mind. Chains of light, crowns passing from hand to hand, humans kneeling, bleeding, forgot. She staggered. Enough, Alistair snapped. The chamber shook. Corvus stepped back, eyes gleaming. You feel it now, he said to Nadia. The truth you were meant to forget. She clutched her chest, heart racing. Then why didn't I forget, she whispered. Corvus's smile sharpened. Because you weren't born human, he said. Not entirely. Crashed over the room. Alistair's head snapped toward Corvus. You lie, tilted his head. He gestured to the crown. It does not answer humans, it answers bloodlines designed to carry it. Looked at Nadia with open hunger. Your mother was part of the last loyal house, altered, hidden. She ran and the council erased her name. Nadia's knees weakened. Mother died in a hospital, she said. She was ordinary. Shook his head. She was hiding, he said, and she succeeded until you sent that message. Realization hit Nadia like a blade. She had not stumbled onto the truth, she had activated it. Alistair's voice dropped to a whisper. This is why the crown recognized you. Looked at him, heartbreaking. You knew, she said. He shook his head once. I suspected, he said. I prayed I was wrong. Clapped softly. Touching, he said, but irrelevant. He straightened, voice turning formal. By authority of the High Council, I claim the crown and the carrier. Stepped forward. The crown reacted violently. Light surged, throwing sparks across the stone floor. Nadia cried out as pain ripped through her veins, this time sharp and burning. Alistair moved to her side, one hand hovering over her back. Not take it, he said fiercely. Me shield you. Laughed. You can't, he said. She's already bonded. Nadia's vision blurred. She felt the crown pulling not toward Corvus, but toward her, like it wanted to climb her spine and settle there. Alistair saw it. He went still, terror naked in his eyes. No, he breathed. I will not watch another human die for my throne. Turned to Corvus, voice like ice. Take me, he said. Kill me, end it. The nobles murmured. Corvus studied him, then shook his head slowly. Too easy, he said, and too dangerous. Looked back at Nadia. She is the future, he said. A crown that can walk in daylight, a ruler the council can control. Nadia screamed as the bond surged again, her body arching under invisible force. Stop, she cried. I don't want this. Alistair grabbed her shoulders, this time not caring about distance. Listen to me, he said urgently. You can command it, but only if you choose. She shook her head, tears streaming. I don't know how. Do, he said. You wrote to me because part of you remembered. Raised his hand. Enough, he ordered. This. The enforcers lunged. In that moment Nadia felt something inside her snap, not break, but align. The pain vanished, replaced by clarity. She looked at the crown and for the first time did not feel called. She felt in control. No, she said. The word echoed, amplified, layered with something older. The enforcers froze mid-step. The nobles staggered back. Corvus's eyes widened in shock. Impossible, he whispered. Nadia stepped forward, unsteady but standing. You don't get to decide what I am, she said. Her voice carried power she did not recognize. You don't get to own what you tried to erase. The crown lifted from the pedestal on its own, hovering between them. Alistair stared, breathless. Nadia, she turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. You hid the truth to protect the world, she said. You also hid it to protect yourself. He closed his eyes, shame clear. I'm sorry, he said. Then help me end this, she replied. Corvus recovered quickly, masking fear with fury. Kill her, he snarled. The enforcers broke free and charged. Nadia raised her hand without thinking. The crown slammed into her palm, heat searing but not burning. A wave of force exploded outward, throwing the attackers into the walls like dolls. The chamber cracked, stones split, candles blew out, plunging everything into darkness except for the crown, now blazing in her grip. Corvus stumbled back, staring at her like a nightmare made real. "You chose," he said hoarsely. "You chose him." Nadia's gaze hardened. "I chose myself," she said. Alistair moved to her side, protective despite the power radiating from her. "This is over," Corvus warned, retreating toward the stairs. "The council will hunt you." Nadia's answer was calm. "Let them," she said. "I'm done hiding." Vanished into the stairwell with his surviving men, silence crashing down after them. The crown dimmed slightly. Nadia's strength faltered, and Alistair caught her before she fell, arms solid around her. She looked up at him, exhausted and terrified. "What am I now?" she asked. He held her like something precious and dangerous. "You are the truth they buried," he said. "The war they can't stop." Above them, the church bells began to ring on their own, deep and relentless, announcing to the hidden world that the crown had awakened at last. The bells did not stop ringing. They rolled across the city like a warning no one outside the hidden world could hear. Nadia felt each toll inside her bones, not painful, but heavy, as if every ring locked her fate tighter into place. Alistair guided her up the stairs from the vault, his grip firm yet careful, as though she might shatter if held too tightly. The crown was gone from her hand now, but its presence remained, coiled beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. She could feel when the shadows shifted. She could feel when eyes watched from places that looked empty. They emerged into the church nave where candlelight flickered back to life on its own. Victor was gone. His absence was louder than any alarm. Alistair noticed it too, but said nothing. His focus was entirely on Nadia, on the way her breathing stuttered when the echo of the bells finally faded. She leaned against a stone pillar, pressing her palm to her chest. "I can hear them," she whispered. Voices, movements, intention. Alistair's expression tightened. "The crown has opened your senses," he said. "It will not close them again," she swallowed. "This is forever," replied quietly. "This is the beginning." Outside, the air had changed. The night felt thinner, as if something had torn a veil and not bothered to repair it. Alistair did not return to the van. He led Nadia through the graveyard instead, between leaning stones carved with names she did not recognize but felt in her blood. They stopped at the far edge where an iron gate waited half open, as if expecting them. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere the council cannot enter without consequence," he said. "My first sanctuary." They crossed the threshold, and the world shifted. The city noise vanished, cut cleanly, as if a door had closed behind them. The path ahead was narrow and dark, lined with trees that bent inward like listening figures. Nadia's skin prickled. She felt watched, but not hunted. Alistair noticed her tension. "They know better here," he said. "This ground remembers who bled for it." They walked for several minutes until the trees opened onto an estate older than the city itself. A low stone manor crouched beneath the stars, windows dark, roof heavy with age. It felt alive, not welcoming, but aware. Inside, the air was warm and smelled faintly of wood smoke and iron. Alistair locked the door with a gesture, no key, no sound. "This place is shielded," he said, "for now." Nadia sank onto a chair, legs trembling, the adrenaline drained at once, leaving exhaustion sharp and sudden. She pressed her fingers to her temples. "They said I wasn't human," she murmured. "Not entirely." Alistair knelt in front of her, bringing his eyes level with hers. "You are human where it matters," he said. "You choose, you feel. You refuse to kneel. That is more human than most of us ever were." Throat tightened. "The rest?" He did not lie. "Rest is inheritance," he said. "Power always comes with predators." As if summoned by the word, pain lanced through her skull. She gasped, gripping the chair arms. Images flooded her mind uninvited, not memories this time, but sights. She saw council chambers carved from marble and bone. She saw Corvus kneeling before a circle of elders, their faces hidden behind veils of light. She saw Victor standing behind him, alive, uninjured, eyes empty. Corvus spoke, but Nadia heard only fragments. "Carrier awaken, bond confirmed, retrieve or eliminate." She screamed, and the vision shattered. Alistair caught her as she slumped forward. "They are using you as a beacon," he said grimly. "Every time you touch the crown's power, you announce yourself." She shook her head weakly. "I didn't touch anything." His jaw clenched. "You don't need to anymore." He helped her to a narrow bed in a back room, drawn curtains sealing them off from the night. "Sleep," he urged. "Your body is adjusting." She laughed weakly. "You think I can sleep after that?" Alistair hesitated, then sat beside her. "Then rest," he said. "I will stay." She watched him carefully, met her gaze without flinching. "If the council takes you, I lose the last chance to end this cycle," he said. "Because I will not let you face this alone." She studied his face, the centuries of restraint etched into every line. "You could walk away," she said. "Them have me." He shook his head. "I already tried that once," he said softly. "It cost a woman her life and bought nothing but more blood." Silence settled between them, heavy but not hostile. Nadia closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "If I run," she said, "they will hunt me forever." "Yes," he replied. "If I stay with you," she continued, "they will hunt us both." "Yes." She let out a shaky breath. "Then what choice is left?" Alistair's voice was steady. "Change the rules." Hours later, she woke to a sensation that was not sound but pressure. Alistair was on his feet instantly, body angled toward the door. "They found us," he said. Nadia sat up, heart pounding. "How?" "It doesn't matter," he replied. "Only what they bring." The walls hummed low, ward straining. She could feel it now, the way magic pressed against structure like a tide testing a dam. She swung her legs off the bed. "Tell me what to do." Alistair turned, eyes searching her face. "You do not fight unless I fall," he said. "Promise me." She hesitated. "If they kill you, they won't," he cut in. "If they try, Victor will be with them." Her chest tightened. "He sold us out." "He sold you out," Alistair corrected. "That makes him predictable." The door exploded inward with a crack like thunder. Wood splintered, smoke rolling across the floor. 5 figures stepped through the wreckage, faces calm, eyes glowing faintly with restraint. The council's elite. Enforcers trained not to destroy what they wanted to claim. Corvus was not with them, that was worse. Alistair stepped forward, shadow stretching unnaturally behind him. "You trespass," he said. The lead enforcer bowed slightly. "By council order, we reclaim the carrier." Nadia felt the crown stir inside her, a restless pull. She clenched her fists. "No," she said. The word carried weight now. The enforcer paused, head tilting as if listening to conflicting commands. Alistair glanced at her sharply. "Not yet," he warned. She swallowed, stepping back. Victor entered last. His gaze flicked to Nadia, then away, unable to hold it. "I told them you would come quietly," he said. "Everyone." Nadia's voice shook. "You lied to me." Victor's mouth tightened. "I saved you," he said, "from being killed on sight." Alistair laughed, low and humorless. "You traded her life for political favor," he said. "You always did love the illusion of safety." Victor bristled. "You're the one who hid the truth," he snapped. "You made her a target." Felt anger rise, hot and sharp. "Stop," she said. They both turned to her. She met Victor's eyes. "You said I forgot something," she said. "Tell me now." Victor hesitated, then sighed. "Your mother didn't run," he said. "She stayed, she bargained, she offered herself as a vessel so the council would leave you alone." Nadia's heart lurched. "They promised her immunity," he continued quietly. "They lied." The room seemed to tilt. Nadia swayed. Alistair caught her elbow. "That is enough," he said to Victor, voice deadly. "You don't get to bleed her with truth now." Victor looked at Nadia one last time. "I'm sorry," he said. "I truly am." The enforcers moved. Alistair reacted instantly, his body a blur of controlled violence. He struck without touching flesh, using force older than muscle, bending space just enough to send 2 attackers crashing into opposite walls. The room shook. Nadia felt the crown surge in response, fear and fury mixing. She remembered his warning, but instinct overrode obedience. One enforcer broke through Alistair's guard and lunged at her. She screamed and raised her hand. The crown answered. Light erupted, not blinding but dense, like compressed heat. The enforcer flew backward, slamming into the ceiling and dropping unconscious. Alistair spun toward her, eyes wide. "I told you." "I know," she cried, "but I won't be helpless." Remaining attackers hesitated now, uncertain. The council had not prepared them for resistance from the carrier herself. Victor shouted, "Take her now." But no one moved. From the shattered doorway a new presence entered, slow and deliberate. The air cooled instantly. Corvus stepped inside, clapping softly. "Beautiful," he said. "Absolutely beautiful." Felt her blood turn cold. "You were waiting," she said. "Of course," he replied. "I wanted to see what she would choose when cornered." He smiled at Alistair. "You taught her well." Alistair's stance shifted subtly, protective and lethal. "Leave," he said, now shook his head. "I can't," he said. "The council has decided." He turned to Nadia. "Come with me," he said gently. "I can teach you control, I can keep him alive." Nadia's chest tightened. "You killed my mother." Smile faded. "I followed law," he said, "just as I will now." The crown pulsed violently, pain ripping through Nadia's veins. She cried out, falling to her knees. Images assaulted her again, but this time she did not resist. She reached into them, searching. She saw her mother standing before the council, head high, eyes fierce. She heard her voice clear as day. "If she carries the crown, she carries choice." Nadia screamed as the memory anchored. She understood then. The crown was not domination. It was consent. She rose slowly, eyes glowing. "No," she said, calm and absolute. Corvus's eyes widened. "You can't." "I can," she replied. "I do." The crown's power surged outward, not as a blast but as a command. The enforcers froze, then dropped to one knee against their will. Corvus staggered, gripping a column. "You don't understand what you're doing," he hissed. "I understand exactly," Nadia said. "I'm ending this." She turned to Alistair. "Trust me." He hesitated only a second, then nodded. Nadia faced Corvus fully. "You wanted the crown," she said. "You wanted control." Her voice lowered. "I revoke it." Air screamed. Corvus collapsed, howling as invisible bindings wrapped around him, locking his power away like a sealed wound. The enforcers fell unconscious one by one. The manor went still. Nadia swayed, drained. Alistair caught her instantly, arms strong around her. She clung to him, breathing hard. "It over?" she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers. "No," he said. "The world just changed." Outside, the night held its breath, as if waiting to see what would rise next. The silence after Corvus fell was not peace. It was shock. The kind that follows an earthquake when the ground is still deciding whether it will open again. Nadia stood trembling, her strength burning out like a dying star. The crown's presence retreated inward, quiet now, but not gone. Alistair held her upright, his arms the only solid thing left in a world that had just rewritten its own laws. Around them the manor groaned as ancient wards reset. The shattered door sealed itself slowly, wood knitting back together as if time itself were embarrassed by the violence. Corvus lay bound on the floor, conscious but powerless, his breath shallow, eyes filled not with rage but disbelief. "You don't know what you've done," he whispered hoarsely. "The council will never accept this." Looked down at him, not with hatred but with something colder. "They don't have to," she said. "I'm done asking permission." She nearly collapsed then. Alistair lifted her without effort and carried her to the central hall, laying her gently on the long oak table that had seen centuries of planning and blood bargains. He brushed her hair back carefully. "You pushed too far," he said quietly. "I had to." Her voice was weak but steady. "If I didn't, they would never stop." Didn't argue. He knew she was right. That was the most dangerous part. As dawn crept toward the horizon, word spread through channels older than technology. The council's enforcers had fallen, the carrier had spoken. The crown had chosen differently. Vampire courts across continents felt it like a pressure change. Some panicked, some celebrated, some prepared for war. By sunrise, the hidden world was fully awake. Victor did not survive the night, not by blade or magic, but by choice. When the bindings dropped from him hours later, he left without a word, no apology, no explanation. Some betrayals do not seek forgiveness. They simply flee. Nadia recovered slowly. The crown no longer hurt, but it watched. She felt it whenever someone thought of her with fear or ambition. Alistair stayed close, not as a guard, but as an anchor. "They will come," he told her one evening as they stood at the manor window watching the first true sunrise she had seen since everything began. "Not all at once, not openly," she nodded. "I know. And when they do," she met his gaze, "they'll find me standing." Weeks passed. The council fractured. Publicly they denied everything. Privately they argued. Some wanted her destroyed, some wanted her crowned. Some wanted to use her as proof that the old ways still worked. None of them truly understood what had changed. The crown no longer belonged to bloodlines alone. It belonged to will. Nadia refused to hide. She returned to the city, walking streets that once made her feel small. She felt eyes on her sometimes, but they did not approach. The story spread quietly first. A woman, a mistake. A king who did not rage, a crown that answered a human voice. For centuries, vampires had ruled from shadow, believing themselves superior. That belief was cracking. Alistair watched her with something like awe. She was not what the council expected, not a weapon, not a queen seated above all. She listened, she questioned, she refused to dominate. They fear you more than any tyrant, he admitted. Good, she replied. They should. The final confrontation did not come as an army, it came as an invitation, a sealed letter delivered by hands that shook. The council requested parley, neutral ground, old rules. Nadia read it once, then burned it. I'll go, she said, but not on their terms. Alistair studied her face. If they try to take you, they won't, she said, because this time I'll speak first. The hall where it ended was vast and white, carved from stone that remembered empires. Faces watched from every direction, ancient and calculating. Nadia stood alone at the center. Alistair waited beyond the threshold, unable to enter unless summoned. She felt the crown stir, ready. They accused, they threatened, they promised power. Nadia listened until they finished. Then she spoke, not loudly but clearly. You ruled by fear because it was easy, she said. You hid behind law because it kept you safe. But the world has changed. Humans see more than you think, and now so do I. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. I am not here to take your thrones, she continued. I am here to end your silence. She reached inward and let the crown answer, not to dominate but to reveal. Truth flooded the hall, memories, every lie, every broken pact, every death hidden behind procedure. The elders screamed as centuries of secrecy burned away. Some collapsed, some fled, some begged. When it ended, the council was no longer united. It was exposed. Nadia turned and walked out without waiting for permission. The doors opened for her, as if relieved. Outside, Alistair was waiting. She looked tired but free. It done? He asked. No, she said softly. It's finally honest. Smiled then, a real one, unburdened for the first time in centuries. What happens now? She took his hand. Now we build something they can't control. The vampire world did not fall. It adapted. Some resisted, some evolved. But the age of unquestioned rule ended that night. And it ended not with fire, but with a message sent by mistake, and a king who chose curiosity over cruelty. Nadia never wore a crown on her head. She didn't need to. The power walked beside her, not above her. And the world watched, uncertain, afraid, hopeful. Because for the first time in history, the shadows were listening to a human voice. If you enjoyed this dark transformation of fate, identity, and power, make sure to support Vampireverse by liking, subscribing, and staying with us. The next story may begin with a mistake too and end with a revolution.